All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Member Kyle Gigo.
Yes, here.
Member Leroy.
Here.
Member Dale Schmitz.
Here.
Member Sharon Powles.
Present.
Stand to the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any suggestions, recommendations on the agenda for today? Any questions? We need to move to.
Just need a motion to approve the agenda.
Would someone make a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve.
Correct.
Okay, then we just need to vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Just need action on the minutes.
Are there any additions or corrections for the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, can we have a motion?
I motion.
Accept the minutes. I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed.
Yay.
Items for discussion and possible action. Consider, discuss, act on information related to regulation of motorized bicycles, electric personal assistant devices, ATVs, other vehicles, including neighborhood electric vehicles, scooters, etc.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Just kind of cover some things again. This memorandum that you see in your packet should be very similar to what we've talked about or discussed several times over the past several months. Cover a couple quick things and then a couple quick points that were requested from the committee at the last meeting. So really what the committee is charged with is devising a recommendation to the village board on how the village should draft an ordinance for consideration related to electric bicycles and electric scooters. At present, we don't necessarily identify or specify those within our ordinances as it relates to the definition and statute. So this was requested by one of our trustees for this committee to look at and to determine whether or not electric bicycles or scooters should be allowed in certain areas of the village and what that pertains to. So a couple quick highlights on that. So Wisconsin statutory law, traffic law, allows for electric bicycles and scooters to operate in the road as if they were a vehicle. Okay, so that's allowable. What it doesn't allow is the use of those on sidewalks, trails, or bikeways, unless the municipality permits it under its own local municipal code. Okay, so as of just standard statutory language, you cannot ride your bicycle on a sidewalk. You cannot ride an electric bicycle on a sidewalk, a bikeway, or a trail unless it's specifically authorized under the municipal code. The same holds true for an electric scooter. Under our current village code, we do allow bicycles to operate on sidewalks. So that's the difference, right? So normally they're not allowed, but by local code, you can allow. We have allowed bicycles by code, and that has been the case for many, many years. So at the committee level, at previous meetings, we talked about electric bicycles, scooters, and personal assistive devices, if they should be allowed on village sidewalks, trails, or bikeways. In previous committee meetings, the committee kind of agreed, informally if you will, that yes, we would follow state statutes, but allow them to operate as if they were like a bicycle. So e-bikes would act just like a bicycle, right, if you recall that. So they could operate on a sidewalk just like a bicycle. They could operate in a bikeway or a path or a trail just like a bicycle. It's really not a whole lot to discern between the two. It would require somebody to actually be stopped. You'd have to analyze the equipment to make sure it fit within the definition of the statute of what an electrical bicycle is, that type of thing. Now, with that being said, by definition, the statute, an electric bicycle does not include motorbikes that we've been seeing more frequently that are electric motorbikes. So You've probably seen them, but they're like dirt bikes basically.
Mhm.
They look like dirt bikes, but they don't have a gas-powered motor on them. They have an electric motor. So you do not pedal them. Those are not considered bicycles under the definition of an electric bicycle per statute. So you have to be able to pedal it,
Yeah. So that's
either
yourself-
fully or partially, for it to basically be considered a bicycle. Those would still be disallowed from operating on sidewalks or even roadways unless they've met the criteria to operate on the road under state law. Okay. Then we talked about what should we do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
All this while, we have been not allowing scooters and stuff like that there, electric scooters and things on sidewalks. Is that what we're saying? As a village?
As of right now, we have not established within code the allowance for e-scooters to operate on sidewalks. Correct.
So in other words,
Technically, we have not done so with electric bicycles either, right? Because we haven't defined that in our code to match what statutes allow.
So the state says no, but the local government can override, can authorize that.
By standard statutory language, electric bicycles or e-scooters are not allowed on sidewalks unless allowed by local code.
in Ashwaubenon only.
Well,
No,
it
yeah,
could be any municipality, but
In this-
we specifically would have to identify it in our code that we would allow.
And we have not. So they're not allowable in Ashwaubenon.
Yeah.
They're not legal in Ashwaubenon.
Technically right now. Now, I would argue, and I'm sure Tom would too, our code is not exactly clean as it relates to the definition of an electric bike or an e-scooter. Because I think it was 2017 or 2018 state law changed to reflect the revised definition of an electric bike and an e-scooter. Our code predates that law. So we would, regardless of whether we're going to allow it or disallow it, we would need to further define what an e-bike is and a scooter, so that would be easier for law enforcement to enforce. Whatever it
Because
is.
the technology is changing all the time, so.
Well, I'm thinking of kids, scooters and stuff like that there, because they're going up and down my street all the time. And, most of the time they are in the street. And, we're talking, 10-year-olds, 12 years old, man, oh, wife, but that's where they have to be legal, right?
No, an electric scooter presently would need to operate like a motor vehicle on the road,
That's what I'm saying, they would be legal on the road,
technically, yes.
even though they're,
Now, that's the argument, that's the question for this committee for a recommendation to the board. Is it appropriate for those electric scooters to be on the road? They are allowed to be on the road. Even if you allow them on the sidewalks, they're still allowed to be on the road. That's not an exclusion that state law dictates. Outside of, you can prohibit scooters from operating on local roads that are posted 25 miles per hour or less. So you
they're not a
could
hindrance
prohibit,
to traffic.
so if there's a local street, Cormier would be an example. Cormier is a local road. It is posted, I believe, at 30 miles per hour. So you could prohibit an electric scooter from operating on the road on Cormier.
Yeah, so it wouldn't affect traffic.
Oneida Street is a county trunk road posted at 30 or 35, depending on what segment. You would not be able to prohibit that locally. That would have to be done at the county jurisdiction.
Okay.
It's not a local.
So it's all,
So that's where it gets confusing too, because not every user understands, oh, I'm on a county road.
Right.
So at a previous meeting, we agreed that electric bicycles, as defined under statute, so there's 3 classifications of those electric bikes, they would be permitted to operate just like any other bicycle would in the village.
Because you can pedal it.
Because you can pedal it. Yeah. And they're really hard to, is that an electric bike? Is it not an electric bike?
Yeah.
How would public safety really, unless they're physically stopping the operator and checking the bike to make sure it's meeting that definition?
Well, some of those you can just see them because they aren't pedaling. It really is, it's an electric moped more than a bicycle.
You'll see pedals, you'll see gears, you'll see movement.
And I stopped at Ace Hardware, they sell them, and the ones they have, some of them don't need to be pedaled. Some of the pedals assist, but others just get on and go. And if you don't, to me, if you don't have to pedal them, it really it isn't a bicycle.
It still would meet the definition under statute if it's
I'm sure that's why the
allowed. You don't
pedals
need
are
to
on
pedal it, but it has the pedaling capability. I forget which class it would be in. It would fit one of the three classes. There's a class 1, I believe, is where you're pedaling it and the electric motor assists in the pedaling. Class 2 is that they're both independent, but they would, like the electric motor wouldn't assist in pedaling, but you could operate it. And then the third one is it's fully independent and you could.
And I think
it
it's how
provides
fast they can-
assistance to add speed or something to that.
And class 3 will go faster.
Yeah. So again, committee kind of recommended that. The last item that the committee has yet to discern over is what do we want to do with electric scooters as far as a recommendation? We want to recommend that they be allowed to be operating on sidewalks.
That would also allow them to be in the street though as well, right? Either or.
Well, street would be allowed automatically under statute unless the specific rule would be in effect for the 25 miles an hour or less.
I think most people would probably be doing the street, except if they're younger. I can see parents telling their kids to stay on the sidewalk type of thing, but then it becomes a little bit of a safety concern, obviously. So I just making sure the group here knows, I mean, if we allowed them on the sidewalk, they could still be eligible to be on the street per state code.
So Joel, I would be a little concerned at trying to do this as a committee and make a decision today, because there were some opinions, some voice opinions, the last meeting from Jessica, I believe it was, I think Kim, and maybe even Tracy. And the concern was that on the opposite end of the safety was, especially from Jessica, because apparently her child is with a group, they travel a sidewalk in certain areas because it's more safe than being on the street. So there was a concern they're eliminating that and not allowing them on the sidewalk, where there are areas where their streets are very busy and they can get on the sidewalk. I don't know that I personally would want to make that decision without their input at this meeting.
That's fair.
Yeah, she had, and the reason I say that is because I don't have children that are using those scooters. I have grandchildren that use them, but I don't have any children here, so I'm not familiar with the high school territory where they're taking them to go to practice. And I mean, that sounded like that was the concern, because they go in groups. Apparently it's not just one. There's like 3, 4, 5, there can be 5, 6 guys all with together. And I've seen it on my street with the group. And there it's a little chaotic because they take the street over. But I'm not in a busy area. So, and the other thing was we were trying to figure out how do we go about educating them, right? That's the most important thing for the children, is how do we educate them?
A whole other topic.
Yeah, for sure. Big
A
topic.
whole different agenda item.
Yeah.
On the education.
So
Yeah,
the
but we talked
concept
about
of
that
electric
last meeting.
Scooter is standing on that thing and holding it like this. And
Yeah.
then you pedal, or
No.
you push yourself,
No.
but you can use the gears, because I'm looking at a picture. You can use the gears to make you go faster and brake and everything.
You can use a
Right?
bicycle or
It's not like a moped.
Yeah, there's no pedaling. You just push the button and go. And there's I don't know what age, I'll just say a student age girl, woman. You know, I don't think she's going to the elementary school. She's either going to the middle school or the high school, that I've seen a couple times zipping down the sidewalk at Corner Road on a scooter, and she's using it for transportation. And I'm thinking, she's not wearing a helmet. You know, if she falls over, as someone who's fallen off of a bicycle, I know. You know, I question the safety of it, but you know, it's transportation, and
It's the education part of that we talked about.
I don't know of a regulation right now that states that you have to wear a helmet
no.
for a scooter or anything like that, you know?
There have been municipalities that have created that as a local code issue that has had success in appealing that. So there are municipalities that do require a bicycle helmet or something, of a helmet for
I-
riding a
I
bicycle.
do agree with Kyle. It's a shame that a lot of these younger kids do, like you said, going up and down the street, 10, 15, 20 miles an hour. And there's scooters,
Yep.
But I do know my next door neighbor across the street, and he's, I think he's first year in high school or something like that, and he wears his helmet all the time. So it's,
I see cyclists on the sidewalk at Corbett Road too, and they're going the same speed, and
Not wearing helmets.
they're not wearing helmets, so, I'm concerned both about the safety of the operator, but that's a busy sidewalk, and so there's kids, there's people pushing strollers, there's people walking one or two or three dogs, and to me, there's a hazard there. I'm concerned with all that, but by the same token, should those 5 kids be riding on the street, and I guess.
they're not gonna go down the sidewalk and say, hey, on your left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're supposed to.
I know they're supposed to, but it won't
And then
happen.
the question is, evolve, how quickly will the new generation of these scooters or whatever become and blah, 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 blah. How are you gonna just,
Yeah, so electric scooter.
we have a
statute.
bicycle to an e-bike now, and that's just in short time, so.
Yeah, and hopefully, obviously, the
What is
statute
a,
change.
what is a scoot, what's the next,
Yeah, so electric,
generation of this concept?
an electric scooter defined by statute, and that would be incorporated into our code, is a device weighing less than 100 pounds,
Listen,
has a handlebar, an electric motor, and is powered solely by the electric motor and human power. So it's got, you can pedal with your foot,
Yep.
you can ride on it solely, but then the maximum speed is not more than 20 miles per hour on a paved level surface.
and those don't go faster than that.
Oh, there's a lot that do.
Oh, yeah.
So they would
Oh,
not
yeah.
qualify as an
Okay.
electric scooter. There are scooters that are going 30, 40 miles an hour, I would think.
It is a huge mode of transportation in today's world. It's going to
Right.
get greater
Better.
because parents aren't home to get their children.
And better and bigger and.
Yep. Yeah, but
Right.
I'm with you, Kyle. On the other hand, if we allow the bicycles on the sidewalk, a bicycle can certainly travel 15, 20 miles an hour on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And they could hit that person too. So that's where I mentioned before, and that's where I think Jessica was coming from. I don't want to speak for her, but is the education part. If you're going to use this tool, how do you use it? No different than a bicycle, right? If you're on the road, you need to obey these laws or you could get killed or you could get hit.
Yeah.
We're fortunate in Ashwaubenon, we don't have a lot of injuries, but it can happen, right? That's the only reason and again, I don't have children, but I do see them all over the place. And I understand from the parents' point of view, their child now can get to football or can get to whatever extracurricular activity that they want without mom and dad having to figure out how to get them in the car and get them there until they get to the age of being able to drive. So,
So a couple of things that the committee had asked for last meeting was just what are other communities doing? So I did a quick survey of
that's
other
right.
communities. So the city of Green Bay, scooters, electric bicycles shall be used like a pedal bike and are permitted on roadways. However, that means electric bicycles and scooters cannot be used on city sidewalks in commercial areas. So they do allow it in residential areas, I think, based on what I heard from them. Riders should always walk their scooters when pedestrians are present on sidewalks in residential neighborhoods. So I think if they're in a neighborhood, they can ride it, but if they're in like downtown commercial district, they're not supposed to be on the sidewalk. The pier prohibits it outright on sidewalks. So no scooters, no bicycles, no play devices or anything. They're prohibited from sidewalks according to their code. In Howard, electric bicycles and scooters are permitted consistent with state statute on roadways. They are permitted on bike paths and shared use paths. So if you think about like Packerland, side path along Packerland, that would be okay. But they are not permitted on sidewalks. So trails are okay, sidewalks are not. Madison prohibits electric bicycles and scooters on sidewalks. They do allow them on roadways and in designated bike lanes on the street.
Madison does allow them on sidewalk?
They do not.
They do not. That makes more sense. Okay.
How does, say like you would have to do, so you see one, and it's illegal.
What do you do?
Are you, yeah,
Yeah, how do
right.
you monitor this?
What do you do?
I think it needs to start with an education aspect of it too. I think, I know you're kind of bringing up some topics of how do we get this word out. Obviously, we have social media, we have a lot of platforms that we can discuss this and put the information out there. We also have like the bike rodeo at the park every single year, and maybe we need to adapt and evolve with the times and start putting a little educational piece in our bike rodeo by saying, hey, kids, bring your bikes. Here's the course. You have your helmets. But there's also, if you have a scooter, bring your scooter. We can discuss, and just basically discuss where you can allow it and how to use it appropriately. I mean, I think it's going to take time, but I don't think, you're not going to stop somewhere and just,
Yeah, you're not gonna flip the
you're not going to be writing tickets right away. You have to educate because this is new.
I think back, and Rex can go with me when I say this. I don't know, I've been a member here, I don't know if it's 20 years or whatever the heck it is, but him and I have been here the longest. And we have tried.
It's a long
A long time. We have tried to educate. I mean, I'm not kidding. We have tried and tried and tried to educate the public on things that should be done. Even walking on the street, walking on the wrong side. I mean, things like that. We've tried this how many years? We talked about this year after year after year. And you know what? That never gets done. I agree with you that education is the key, but boy, I tell you what, it is so hard.
But I think it also helps if we kind of match our bordering municipalities with how they are doing it. I mean, we obviously live here and we understand our boundaries and our borders, and we can sit and discuss and define how we want to operate within the village of Ashwaubenon. But the next border is just like a couple blocks down the road, and so if it's grossly different than what's happening there, if someone just crosses over Lombardy over here, I mean, again, more education, you have to explain that. But if we can kind of align with our neighbors and kind of keep things standard, I think it just helps.
It's already, but if you look at the Sand Acres and the Pagels property is going to be building lots, you drive down the street and you're in the pier.
I forgot we had asked you to do that. Thank you for doing that. That was a big piece of it. So after hearing that, my mentality is swaying the other way now because I'm with you. That's going to be very confusing. We're trying to interconnect, right? We keep talking about it. We want to be able to interconnect the pier and Green Bay and Howard. So now, just like you said, now this guy travels and all of a sudden he's against the law because he just traveled across the line and he doesn't even know it because he doesn't know the laws.
Or if I ride down Cormier Road and turn on Oneida Street, the laws change because all of a sudden it's a village road and it's the county highway, or I don't know, it's Packerland County Highway.
Yeah.
There aren't any signs up that says no blah, blah, blah on sidewalks, are there? I mean,
No.
So, yeah, I think Dale's right. Whatever's done, it should match the other.
I mean, if an officer sees somebody on the sidewalk and it looks like he's probably a lot safer than being on the street, are you going to stop him?
But from my perspective, you see a very, very young kid on a scooter flying down the road.
Yeah.
And they're weaving it. They don't understand how to control it. I personally would much rather see them off and on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But if we have bike lanes and we have other things in place, and
Yeah, which matters
the other
is
municipalities.
a perfect example of having the infrastructure for bicycles and all that. They have the lanes and all. That's why I didn't expect you to say they would allow them to ride on sidewalks in Madison. I don't know, because what you just told us is you got De Pere, no, you got Howard, no, you got Green Bay, part of it, and yes, no.
Kind of.
Yeah, and it's a yes, no. So why would we, as a village, go against the grain? I think that'd be confusing in my mind.
And I put Eau Claire as no riding on sidewalks, but it's like Green Bay. It's okay in residential areas, but not in the commercial areas. So I just didn't include that. In fact, I was in Eau Claire this weekend and they had signs up in their downtown that said, pedestrian zone, please walk your wheels. And they had them on every light
Sign,
pole.
yeah,
Oh,
like
cool.
a sign.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
Watch your wheels.
Walk your wheels. But they had bird scooters and bird bikes parked all over the place too, so there's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So that brings up those scooters, and I believe that there's no memorandum with the company in the village.
We do not have a contract or an agreement. that would
So
allow them.
did they not approach Ashwaubenon or?
Well, they have. Yeah, they have.
So if we are gonna want these rules to be consistent, I think we have to figure that part out too. Because if all of a sudden we say you can't have bird scooters, but you can use your own scooter, for allowing one, I think
Has to be
that
consistent.
opens the door for the other.
Oh, that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for consistency, the village has to address that as well.
We don't have a tremendous amount of sidewalks either, so I think if
No.
committee, and we could certainly forward this conversation to the next meeting to finalize with and hopefully have full participation at the meeting, but the committee is agreeable, we can even look at eliminating that for sidewalks anyway, the use of bicycles and scooters on sidewalks. That's where I'm starting to see the tendency lean to. Bike paths, pathways, shared use paths, those would be different. Those are wider,
Yeah.
they're usually 8 to 10, 12 feet in width. That's different, right? You can have that cross traffic on the sidewalk, you're dealing with 4 or 5 foot width. Having all that traffic on there that's moving at fast speed, you may want to be prohibitive of that. Then that would be consistent with the Pierre and Green Bay though, because they disallow it on sidewalks, but they allow it on the other trails, bike paths, shared use paths.
Having said that, I may have missed this, Joel, so I apologize if we did. Did you also ask them about bicycles?
Yes.
Okay. And was that consistent? Were they not allowed to be on the
Consistent.
sidewalks?
There wasn't any municipality that regulated bikes different than scooters
Okay.
as it related to the sidewalk.
So it's all in it, okay.
Some of them had rules, specifically there was a limitation, I think it was Appleton. Scooters were limited on roadways with a mile per hour of 25 miles. So they did adopt that portion of the statute that said they are restricted to streets of lower speed. So it sounds like we'll bring this back
Yeah.
another month.
Yeah, do we have to vote on it or can we just?
No, I'd say just, we could just, motion to postpone any action until the next meeting if you want to do it that
I'll
way.
motion
or-
to postpone
I'll
action
second
on
All in favor?
Aye.
that. Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Who
Motion
seconded?
carries?
Who seconded?
Sharon.
Me.
Good job. I didn't hear it.
So item 6B, consider, discuss, act on improvements for a bicycle corridor in the southern part of the village.
And a motion to, you said this is Tracy's thing?
Tracy is really the one that's bringing this. I really can't speak to it other than Tracy wants to have some kind of east-west connection for a bicycle route in the southern portion of the village. My guess is it's related to Parkview. And if Parkview is not going to be given a designation for a bike lane, then what is the next road? So it's really a committee preference.
So I've ridden all of those roads. I've ridden Parkview, I've ridden Glory Road, and it goes into that roundabout. And at first I thought, well, this is gonna be terrible. It isn't so bad.
Into the roundabout, you're seeing it goes to Ashland?
Yeah, so I've ridden Glory Road into that roundabout. I've taken Grant Street, I've taken Main Street, and all of those are doable if you, I guess, for an experienced cyclist.
I was just gonna tell you that. You know that, I know that.
But someone who rides, if someone who thinks 5 miles is a long bike ride, they aren't riding that much, I think they're gonna stay away from those. Or there are sidewalks, you just get off your bike and use the sidewalks. Typically those roundabouts have sidewalks. Because most of those intersections have roundabouts on them.
So you found it an easy opportunity to get across there
Yeah,
at
I
that
don't-
roundabout because the traffic, you watch for the traffic, I'm sure didn't watch for you coming off Ashland going on to 41.
Yeah, I watch for traffic and just, when there's an opening, I go and,
Yeah.
because the cars aren't moving that fast in a roundabout. They're
Shouldn't
going 15 miles an hour, which is what I'm riding in a bicycle.
Yeah.
So, any of those routes are, doable I think they're doable for someone who's gonna wanna get across the village. It would be nice for the recreational rider to have a good route, but with the configuration of the village, I just don't see building an overpass over on top of Ashland. I don't see how that's possible.
Have you ever experienced, because I haven't, Parkview, is it Parkview where we wanted to try and eliminate parking? Have you ever experienced that when there is actually something going on at the gymnastics or whatever?
No, I don't.
Okay, you don't go that way.
Well, I don't ride that time of the day. When the gymnastic things are going, it's usually later in the day.
It's not like all across the road.
Or is it?
And there's businesses that
That's
do
one
daytime parking
Wisconsin,
there
they're
too.
gonna have hundreds
Yeah,
of people.
there's a lot of truck parking and stuff on Parkview.
Yeah.
So if it's agreeable, we can bring this back to a future meeting too, because I don't know that anyone is comfortable.
No, I think we were just gonna look at the area and see if there's anything.
Yeah, in your packet,
Accessible.
in fact, no, that would be the map that Leroy has there, but in your packet, there is a map that comes straight out of the bike and ped plan. Actually, it might be on the back of this, yeah, so it's this map right here.
Yep.
If you want to take a look at that, it's probably a little hard to see because it's on a smaller sheet of paper. But the dashed lines in the southern part of the village represent planned facilities. The solid lines represent an existing facility. So when you look at this map, you have Parkview has a dashed line, which means it has a planned wide curve lane. Parkview right now currently has that. So making changes to Parkview would represent a change in what the bike ped plan identified, which is fine. That just requires that notation that we're going to make that change. Main Avenue, which is on the very far southern part of the village, has either a solid green line or a dashed green line in portions of it. That's the Main Avenue trail that Rex and the park department has been working towards constructing over several years.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that trail and how far east does that trail go?
I don't buy,
What are
right?
we talking?
The Main Avenue trail?
The Main Avenue Trail?
So we're talking east-west?
Yeah.
So it it would be from basically Leyden,
Okay.
and then it goes, so I'm starting far west, so you're going east, all right?
Yeah.
So you're going from Leyden to Packerland, that's gonna be on the north side of the street, then you're gonna
Mhm.
cut over
Mm-hmm.
to the south side of the street, and then it goes from Packerland to Ridge Road.
Okay.
And the section that we're working on is to put additional trail, Ridge Road to Arts, which is that little cul-de-sac that only has a couple of homes on it.
Okay.
And then from Arts to 41 would probably make more sense to be sidewalk, just due to the cost. And once it hits 41 / the roundabout, then pedestrian accommodations are already integrated there, so you just hook up with them.
There's some environmental constraints on that sidewalk portion that Rex talked about. That's what's driving the cost, because we would have to do considerable utility relocates, and then that bridge that spans the creek there only has sidewalk on it. So you'd have to effectively either build a second bridge or replace the existing bridge, and that's probably not realistic.
No,
Do we have right away on those businesses?
that's kind of what we're working on. So McMahon is working with Public Works right now on determining where the utility locates all are. And then from that, we would need to figure out, this is why we're doing it, we need to figure out how much right of way we would need to purchase.
Okay.
So our thought would be then to purchase the right of way. And just that way, it's a shovel-ready project. We have everything that we need, paperwork in hand. If there's grant opportunities, we've got that work. We've got, whether there is or isn't anymore, we've got everything in hand, ready to go, including that right of way. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's stalled a little bit, with McMahon working on a couple other projects for the village. But I'm sure it'll pick up again this winter.
And then the idea is the Pago property would stop, because they're doing the cul-de-sac right until, I forget the gentleman's name that owns the last piece of property there.
Yeah, it'll be basically
Temporary, but
cul-de-sac
at some point we'd be able to come around there someplace and hook up with that same.
Correct.
Path. Okay.
Like the gravel
Yep.
path of the Sand
Yep.
Acres, Sand Acres Park Trail.
Yep.
Sand Acres Drive, could put Sand Acres Park Trail, which is crusher dust, follows the gas line easement that would connect to the bulb at the end of the cul-de-sac on ours.
Okay.
So on the other road that's really a good connecting street in the south part of the village is Glory Road. There's no planned improvement on Glory Road. So that could be an option to identify in the
That was
plan.
recently reconstructed, not that long ago.
Was it? So there's an opportunity there. Maybe that's another wide lane. Maybe that's, a bike route. So not official bike lane, but maybe a bicycle route. So the stencil and the chevron just indicating that bicyclists share this area. Not that they don't, but they could.
Does Glory Road go all the way out to Packer Line?
Glory Road goes.
I think it does.
Yeah.
It does?
Yep.
Okay.
And then it does connect all the way to the roundabout at Ashland.
Yes, that's the road that goes to the roundabout.
And I think part of Tracy's concern is that she didn't feel comfortable with roundabouts for bicyclists. And the Parkview one has the kind of that interchange on Ashland Avenue that she called the big interchange. By the drift.
Pass through by the drift.
So there's an opportunity to either, have that white lane in Parkview or do some improvement on Glory. And then if you go to Holmgren, connects all the way down, terminates at Glory, I think it terminates at. Maybe it goes a little bit further south. But Holmgren, that section of Holmgren has a planned future bicycle lane there as well. So if
Holmgren
Site-
and Parkview. No,
Glory.
Holmgren goes to Glory.
Yeah. So if you feel comfortable going to the roundabout, you can. If you want to use the kind of interchange, the bicyclist interchange at Parkview, you can cycle up Holmgren to Parkview and then cut across to get to that interchange.
And any changes to any of that would have to be done through the county, because that's county. Let's say we wanted a flashing light, I don't think you'd ever do it at a roundabout, I don't know how you could, but at Parkview, when you go across Parkview, across Ashland,
Yeah.
there's no signs or anything, it's just,
There's a mid-block crossing there
Yeah.
that you can cross at
Yeah.
and have a refuge. That's a state trunk highway.
Yeah.
So
it is.
requires-
Okay, okay.
And I'm not sure why they configured that little island the way it is. So there's two parts of it, and you can't go across, you have to stop, and I don't know if that's just to make cyclists stop so they don't go across that second lane of traffic.
They walk their bike. I know guys from the pier that come, and when they get there, they walk their bike across, through that little
Yeah,
section right there.
yeah. That's why I kind of ride to and just sort of,
It was originally Parkview connected and there was an intersection at Ashland.
Right.
So when they closed that off, it was due to the crash data
Yeah.
there, so they cul-de-sac Parkview. And there was a push, if you will, from, I think, some bicyclist enthusiasts to put some type of trail from the cul-de-sac bulb of Parkview up to Ashland and then create that connection through the, otherwise.
Came from
Yeah, the state was going to do a full closure of that intersection and not allow bicyclists or pedestrians to cross. There was effort from this group to put that refuge island in there to allow the bicyclists to cross.
I just take Hanson usually.
Which still makes sense for those that aren't comfortable doing the roundabout.
Because then you have a controlled
Which is what I
intersection.
think, I'm trying to remember back when that all happened, but I believe that was the concern of the committee.
I take hands too. I always.
So we will discuss that more at the next meeting.
Yep.
my agenda.
Did you take a motion on that? No?
Let's see.
Unless you want to take a motion like you did last time to postpone until the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll motion to postpone we're talking about the bicycle corridor in the southern part of the village for next meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It's the agenda topics that will never go away.
I'm going,
Do we get reports from Rex or from police? I haven't seen it on the agenda.
Yep, so again, just to kind of avoid any issues with open meetings law, we pulled those as kind of general items. Because
Okay.
since we talk too much about things that maybe not germane to
Oh, I
the
get you.
committee. But if there's items that you want specifically reported, then I would say put those on, like items for next agenda, and then we could let's say Tom know that you want an update on pedestrian crashes in the village for the last 3 months or 6 months.
Okay,
Then he would report on that.
okay.
That's kind of how we want to do it. So if there's something specific you want to talk about, perfectly fine. Let's just identify it so it gets properly noticed on the agenda.
Okay,
Curious, because it's not on the agenda. It probably would have been part of the action on the minutes from the flashing lights on here. We talked about that. Can we talk about that now, or we need to put that for next agenda? Because we talked about being at an intersection,
Sure.
right? And I've seen that, right? When you go to, by the golf course there, it's at an intersection, right?
Yeah.
And when I was in Wauwatosa, I took a picture of it. It's at an intersection, a heavy intersection, a lot of traffic. So it's not like there's not areas where they don't put them at intersections.
Right.
Um,
I think it's just preferable not because it creates some confusion potentially for motorists.
For the turning, people turning.
But it's doable. Yeah, I mean, if you want to have that conversation, then I would recommend placing it as an item and then we can talk more in depth on it.
Well, I
Otherwise,
don't know if we decided, we haven't really decided.
yeah, what was
What-
decided at the last meeting was you're comfortable with the 2 to 3 are rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
Yep.
We would work with a consultant engineer because we
That's
would have to anyway.
Yep.
And then once we have kind of the design figured out or conceptualized more in detail, we could bring that back to the committee.
Yeah.
So we can wait till that time or?
No, we can wait till that time. That's fine. That's fine.
is there anything else that we should discuss at the next meeting?
We should decide right now who's bringing in the Christmas cookies.
I'm just suggesting.
This used to be a thing. Julie Johnson used to
Yes,
bring them in every holiday.
That's
so I
exactly
don't
right,
really
she did.
Pick that back up, so.
And I would make a suggestion that Tracy can eat considering she's not here today.
I will unofficially bring Christmas cookies in case Tracy doesn't, so at least we'll have some Christmas.
There we go.
cookies.
Beautiful.
I already brought Martinis. So
Yes, you did. I remember that.
Yeah, I've already brought the Martinis.
I would motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.